Rio Sangre. It was a hot summer day. New Mexico Territory, 1839. It was a dangerous time to be alive. The Mexican government had fallen. Bands of outlaws and marauding ex-soldiers terrorized the land. One such band was gathered together on a hilltop, overlooking a small town known as Rio Sangre. At the lip of the mesa, two men sat on horses. One was General Maximo. He was a ruthless, cunning man who ruled an army of killers with an iron fist. Beside him was his lieutenant, Sanchez. Maximo was surveying the town below through a spyglass that he held up to his one good eye. He lowered it and turned to Sanchez.
Rio Sangre. It's a little farming pueblo. It would be a good place to resupply. The men are hungry and the horses are getting thin.
Lieutenant Sanchez pulled out a gun.
What are we waiting for then?
But General Maximo stopped him.
Their crops aren't ready yet. We'll let them break their backs for us, then come back and take it all.
Just then, they heard a sound. They looked over and saw an old woman walking up a nearby trail carrying a bundle of sticks.
Ay, Dios mío, this bundle gets heavier every mile. Oh.
She saw the bandit army and stopped. She dropped her bundle on the ground.
Santa Maria! Benditos!
General Maximo and his lieutenant rode over to the old woman, cutting off her escape.
Well, look what we have here.
The old woman looked up at them, clutching her hands together, pleading, trembling.
No, please, don't shoot. I can't even run.
Too bad you're so damn old. We could have had some fun with you.
General Maximo pulled out his gun and shot the old woman in the head.
No, please, no!
She crumbled to the ground, dead.
At least the old crow was good for target practice.
Maximo rode off. The huge bandit army followed. But after they were gone, a young boy, Paco, age 14, crawled out from underneath a fallen cactus.
Dios mío.
He took off, heading to Rio Sangre, running as fast as he could. A short time later, in the center of Rio Sangre, a large crowd had gathered outside the church. A meeting was going on inside. People were crowding the entrance. A balding, overweight shopkeeper named Umbaldo joined the crowd. He was dragging his beautiful 20-something daughter, Rosario, behind him. Umbaldo tapped a man on the shoulder.
I heard there was some trouble.
Sí. Banditos.
Umbaldo rudely shoved his way inside, pushing his way through the crowd.
Come, Rosario.
Watch it.
Dad!
Inside the church, the old woman's dead body lay on the altar. A trio of old women were weeping and saying prayers to her. A farmer cried out,
Look what those bastards did to poor old Maria! These men are beasts! They'll kill us just for sport!
A young farmer named Carlos shouted out to Paco, the teenage boy who had seen the bandits.
How many bandits were there?
At least 200, maybe more.
Everyone's jaw hung open. Women crossed themselves. Suddenly, Umbaldo stepped forward, pointing at Paco and shaking his head.
You're going to believe this dirty little orphan? He can't even read, much less count.
It was an army. I'm not blind, idiot. I can read, too.
Herman, a nervous, mousy man, cried out.
We should abandon our farms while we still have time and hide in the hills.
Carlos waved his fist defiantly in the air.
No, I'm not going to run. What are we going to eat in the wilderness? Rattlesnakes? Rocks? My blood's in this soil. I'd rather die fighting than starving.
Carlos's words met approval with the crowd, except for Umbaldo.
You're all very brave, But need I remind you, we have no weapons, and we're fighting an army of trained killers. They'll cut us to pieces. After we're gone, they'll rape our wives and daughters.
Women clutched each other, shuddering at the thought. Rosario looked around at the desperate faces. She was scared too. Then suddenly, a loud banging sound got everyone's attention. Everyone looked over at the back of the church. An old blind man was sitting in the last pew. He was banging his cane on the floor. Fernando, the town padre, called for quiet.
Quiet, everyone. El Viejo has something to say.
Everyone quieted down and listened to the old blind man.
When I was a boy, I lived in a pueblo that was attacked by an army of bandits. The worst scum this land has ever seen. But we survived.
How?
The people put in everything they had, from their silver to the shirts off their backs, to pay gunfighters to protect the harvest.
You hired outlaws, killers.
Call them what you like, but they were tough men who knew how to handle a gun. Once the bandits got a taste of their lead, they moved on.
Viejo, with all due respect, you know this is a poor town. We don't have no gold or silver.
We have the harvest.
Gunfighters kill for money, not tortillas, old fool.
The old blind man nodded. He rubbed his chin and then said thoughtfully,
A man will fight for what he needs. Find hungry gunfighters.
It was early the next morning. A crowd had gathered to see off 3 emissaries who were to go to Santa Fe in search of gunfighters. Carlos kissed his young wife Esther and their baby.
Be safe.
I will.
Meanwhile, Herman, the mousy farmer, said goodbye to his family. He walked down a line of 8 kids, kissing each one. Nearby, the town padre, Fernando, turned to his young assistant, Jesus.
Don't worry. Santa Fe is a big town. We're bound to find something.
I'm not worried. I have faith, Padre.
Good, Jesus. Take care of the church until I get back.
A short distance away, Umbaldo looked out the window of his store as Rosario did laundry behind him.
Ha! Look at those sad idiots. They're wasting their time.
Rosario made a face and threw a load of shirts into the water, splashing her father.
Hey!
Just then, out of the crowd, the young orphan boy, Paco, suddenly appeared. He had a small bag of provisions with him. He ran over to the men, but Fernando stopped him, shaking his head.
You're a brave boy, Paco. Go home.
I don't have one.
You know what I mean. Get back to the church.
Paco didn't move.
Go!
Paco still didn't move.
I can handle myself.
Carlos stepped in.
You heard the padre. Get lost.
Paco sneered at Carlos, but walked away. Herman shook his head.
Stubborn little shit, that one.
The men headed out on foot. As they walked out of Rio Sangre, the eyes of every man, woman, and child followed them until they disappeared over the horizon. A short time later, the men trudged along until they reached the crest of a hill. They stopped and turned around. In the distance behind them, they saw Paco. He had been trailing them. They tried to shoo him away.
Go!
Herman picked up a rock and threw it at him. But Paco stood his ground, refusing to leave. Finally, the men turned and started walking again. Paco trailed behind them. This went on for several miles, until finally, Fernando sighed and motioned for Paco to join them. Paco ran over to them, and they continued. They walked for days, traveling through rain, sandstorms, and boiling sun, until finally, they reached Santa Fe, exhausted and dirty. A short time later, in the main square of Santa Fe, Fernando, Carlos, Herman, and Paco stood outside a saloon, watching tough men with iron on their hips come and go. They were intimidated, afraid to approach anyone. Carlos pointed to a big, tough man with a scar running down his face. Maybe that one. The others shrugged. Carlos gathered his courage and went over to the gunfighter with the scar on his face. The others looked on hopefully as Carlos tapped him on the shoulder and started to talk to him. Suddenly, The man grabbed Carlos and threw him to the ground. Carlos cowered, covering his face. The man stomped away. Onlookers laughed at Carlos. The others came over and helped him to his feet. They tried to approach several other tough-looking men, but got similar, dismal results. No one wanted to help them. As night fell, the men settled into a run-down boarding house. It was a flea-ridden establishment. A bunch of drunks were sharing a bottle at one end of the room. Carlos, Fernando, Herman, and Paco huddled nearby on the floor, trying to eat their small ration of bread. They looked miserable. Herman was near tears.
No one is going to help us. We're going to die.
A drunk yelled over to them.
That's right, you stupid farmers. No one gives a shit about you.
One of the other drunks took a long swig of whiskey and chimed in.
Can you believe these stupid pendejos trying to hire a gunfighter with beans?
Paco jumped up.
Why don't you shut up, you dumb Boracho?
The men just laughed at him.
Boy, come a little closer so I can cut out your tongue.
Fernando pulled Paco back down to the floor. Herman sobbed.
My poor wife and children.
Don't worry, Herman. You have to have faith, brother.
Stop lying to him, Padre. You're screwed.
Finally, Carlos snapped. He leaped to his feet with his fist clenched.
I've had enough.
The drunks looked at each other. The three of them stood up, grabbing weapons. Chairs, bottles. One of them had a knife. They marched over to Carlos. Herman, Paco, and Fernando all backed away. The drunk with the knife waved it in Carlos's face. Then another drunk punched Carlos, sending him spinning to the floor. Herman, Fernando, and Paco rushed to his side. Carlos rubbed his bloody mouth.
Get up. I'm not done with you.
But just then, another drunk poked his head inside the flophouse and shouted out,
"Hey, y'all, come quick. The Hawks gang's been cornered. There's gonna be a shootout."
No shit.
The drunk sneered at Carlos.
We'll finish this later.
The drunk stumbled out the door. Fernando helped Carlos to his feet. They headed after them. Moments later, Carlos, Fernando, Herman, and Paco approached a large crowd in the street. Everyone was gathered below a large water tower. At the very top, they saw glimpses of men with guns. The sheriff and his deputy were in positions of cover below the tower. Carlos overheard bystanders whispering.
The whole gang is holed up at the top. They'll put a hole through anyone who tries to come up.
Why don't they just set fire to it and burn it down?
They took a hostage. A baby.
Just then, they heard a desperate baby wailing high atop the tower. The baby's mother tried to run forward, but the crowd restrained her.
Please, please, don't let them take my baby!
They've been up there since noon. That poor kid must be starving by now.
Herman shook his head.
He doesn't have much time.
Fernando crossed himself. Just then, high atop the tower, one of the outlaws shouted down.
You send anybody up here, and I'm throwing this damn baby down!
Just then, a gust of cold air swept over Paco. He turned as a man in a black suit appeared. He was walking on foot, but he seemed to almost materialize out of the thin air. The stranger was wearing a long coat and had his collar pulled up to his ears. A black bandana was wrapped around his face. Paco caught a quick glimpse of his eyes. They looked strange, reddish, and unworldly. People made room for the stranger. There was something dark and menacing about him. He went up to the sheriff. The sheriff seemed to know him, and he looked afraid of him. They spoke privately for a brief moment. The sheriff nodded. Herman turned to Fernando.
What's going on now?
I don't know.
Suddenly, the stranger made a dash for the base of the tower. The outlaws in the tower fired. Bullets ricocheted off the ground, but the stranger was underneath the tower in a blink of an eye.
He made it!
Look! He's going up!
The stranger started to scramble up the tower, climbing the wooden crossbeams on the inside with his bare hands. They caught a glimpse of him, rising onto the top, and then he disappeared. Everyone stood in tense silence, waiting. Suddenly, multiple gunshots rang out. The crowd gasped. An object fell from the sky and landed hard on the ground with a bone-crunching thud. It was a man. Then 2 more bodies flew off the tower and hit the ground. The sheriff ran over to one of the bodies and kicked it over.
It's John Hawk and his gang.
What about my baby?
Just then, the stranger appeared at the base of the water tower. In his hands, he was cradling the wailing child. He walked over to the mother and handed her back her baby.
He's okay.
She wiped grateful tears away.
Bless you, sir. Thank you.
The stranger turned from her. He walked away into the night. The crowd ignored him as they rushed over to gape at the dead outlaws. Carlos, Herman, Fernando, and Paco looked at each other. They were all thinking the same thing. They took off running, looking for the stranger. For several minutes, the boys looked around the back streets, trying to find the stranger, but he seemed to have vanished. Then finally, they spotted him, heading down a dark alley. They ran over to him.
Excuse me, sir?
We're poor farmers. We need help.
We need a gunfighter.
What the boy means is that bandits are raiding our village. All of our families will be killed.
The stranger paused for a moment and spoke to them through his bandana.
What makes you think I can do anything to change that?
The stranger turned from them and continued walking.
Oh, what's the point? He doesn't care. No one does. Let's just go home.
Carlos, however, was enraged.
I've had enough.
Carlos, don't.
Carlos ignored him and ran up to the stranger.
Please, help us.
You don't want my help. Trust me.
Have some pity, senor. We're just poor farmers. We come from a small pueblo, Rio Sangre. We have nowhere else to turn.
The stranger stopped. There was something Carlos said that caught his attention.
Rio Sangre? Why do you want to save that speck of nothing for?
With all due respect, senor, that speck is our home.
The stranger considered this, and then started walking again. Carlos stepped in his way.
What's wrong with you? Where's your humanity?
My humanity? I lost that a long time ago.
The stranger pulled off his bandana. His skin was pale, bone white. He had fangs and piercing, inhuman eyes. He was a vampire. The farmers took a step back, gasping. Before they had time to even blink, the stranger seized Herman, lifting him off the ground by the scruff of his neck. Herman peed on himself. The stranger threw him to the ground in disgust. The stranger turned and saw Paco standing there, stunned and frozen.
And you bring a boy?
Carlos jumped between the stranger and Paco.
Leave him alone!
Fernando whipped out a metal cross. He waved it at the stranger.
Back, you devil! Back!
The vampire let out a hiss and shielded his eyes from the cross. But he didn't retreat. The cross seemed to both repel and attract him. Suddenly he grabbed it. The cross burst into flames. The metal melted and sizzled into his hands. The stranger clutched the cross tightly, staring at it. Finally, he flung the smoking cross into the dirt. The stranger stared at his badly burned hand. A look of intense sadness washed across his face. Just then, a group of men with horses entered the alley. The horses sensed the stranger and reared up in panic. The stranger sneered at the farmers and disappeared in a whirling cloud of dust. Carlos, Herman, Fernando, and Paco were left alone, shaking in terror. A short time later, back at the flophouse, Carlos, Fernando, Herman, and Paco quickly packed up their belongings.
I am telling you, it was a vampire.
Don't speak of it, Paco. Just pack up quickly.
Herman slumped on the floor. He was nearly in tears.
But where will we go?
Carlos, Fernando, and Paco looked at each other. No one had any idea. Herman began to cry. Just then, the drunks returned. They were belligerent even drunker than before. They saw the farmers picking up their things and sneered.
Leaving so soon?
One of the drunks walked over and got in Herman's face.
What's the matter, shit-kickers? The big city, too much for your stupid country asses.
Carlos held his temper and tried to walk out, but one of the drunks put his leg up against the span of the doorway, blocking his path.
They're not going anywhere until we finish what we started.
He punched Carlos, knocking him to the floor. The other drunks attacked Fernando and Herman. One of the drunks reached for Paco, but he bit his hand. The drunk slapped him and slammed him into a wall and put his knife to his throat. When suddenly, a voice whispered,
I wouldn't do that. The sight of blood has a bad effect on me.
The drunks turned. The vampire was standing in the doorway.
Put the boy down.
You ought to mind your own business, amigo.
The lead drunk let go of Paco. He moved in on the vampire, waving his knife.
Bad idea.
The vampire suddenly exploded into action. He slashed the drunk's face with his fingernails. The drunk staggered backward, holding his face as blood spurted out between his fingers. The vampire hurled another drunk through the flophouse window. Another drunk tried to grab a gun stashed in his bunk, but the vampire bent his arm backwards 90 degrees until it cracked. The drunk with the knife slashed wildly at the vampire. The vampire grabbed his arm and tore the knife from his grip. He rammed the knife through the drunk's hand, pinning it to a table. Then the vampire kicked him, ripping his hand loose and sending him flying out the door. The badly beaten drunk staggered to their feet and ran off, screaming in pain and terror. The vampire pulled the bloody knife out of the table. He licked the blade clean. Then the vampire turned and walked slowly towards the farmers and Paco. They cowered before him in terror. But the vampire didn't attack them. Instead, he smiled.
Let's talk.
Moments later, the vampire led the farmers and Paco through the bad parts of Santa Fe. Paco ran ahead to walk alongside him.
Paco, come back here.
Paco ignored Fernando and turned to the vampire.
Excuse me, sir. What is your name?
They call me Priest.
Just then, they arrived at an old ruined church. Priest went up to the broken door and opened it, and led them inside. The ruined church had no roof. Priest led his visitors down a long, spiraling staircase to a cavern below. Priest's lair was simple but dignified. There was a coffin that lay on the ground in an alcove behind a black curtain. There were carpets on the floor and a bookcase full of classic volumes. There were a few paintings here and there. A table, but only one chair.
I'm sorry, I have nothing to offer you. I don't normally have guests.
Because you're too busy hunting for your next meal.
No, Padre. I rarely feed on humans, and when I do, it's never to the point of death.
But do you feed?
It can't be helped. You have no idea what the yearning is like. Sometimes, the thirst is beyond my will.
Why do you resist it?
I was a man of the cloth once, before I became a monster.
How did it happen?
There was a vampire who lived in the hills near my town. The village sent me up there to drive him away. He bit me and took away my life.
Priest turned away from them. He looked at a piece of broken stained glass window that he'd saved in the corner of his room.
If it wasn't for my vows, I would have killed myself a long time ago. To repent for my sins, I try to do good here and there.
So can you help us?
Priest thought for a moment.
I will need to be paid. each night.
Priest suddenly reached up and grabbed an empty jug behind Herman. He tossed it to Carlos.
Fill this with blood. Draw it from your livestock. Animal blood will sustain me, but do not draw from vermin. I hate the taste of rats. How many bandits are there?
200.
Priest shook his head.
We'll need help. At least 10.
10 what?
Priest smiled, but suddenly his eyes fluttered.
The sun is rising. I must rest. We'll talk more tomorrow evening, eh?
Priest went over to the alcove where the coffin lay. He pulled the curtain across for privacy and climbed into his bed. The farmers looked at each other, thinking. It was the next evening. After Priest arose, he led the farmers into the hills outside of town.
Where are we going?
The saloon.
The farmers looked at each other. They could only imagine what that meant. Up ahead was an old quarry that was part of a mining operation that was closed. As they approached, the farmers noticed coyotes and other small animals going the opposite way. Priest turned to them.
Stay very close to me.
The saloon was close now. A glow of lights could faintly be seen rising from the quarry up ahead. Strange music filled the air. Suddenly a man appeared in front of them. He seemed to materialize out of the thin air. It was a vampire. They called him Razors. He was a little shorter than Priest, disheveled. He had a shot glass filled with tequila in one hand, and another glass filled with blood.
Razors.
Priest.
Razors took the shot of blood and mixed it with his tequila, and then downed it.
Ah, that hits the spot.
He smiled at them, showing off his fangs. Suddenly, he let out a fart. The farmers made faces. Paco covered his nose and whispered to Herman.
His farts smell worse than dead.
Razors bent down to Paco.
That's 'cause I'm dead, mijo.
Priest pulled Paco away from Razors.
They're with me.
An eyebrow went up on Razor's face. He chuckled and scratched his chin.
That's weird, 'cause I could have sworn softies like you didn't come around bringing your own wine.
They're not for that.
Then why the hell you bring them here?
Priest turned and led the farmers away. Razors took another shot of blood tequila. He continued talking to himself as he watched them go.
That guy's always up to something. Even for a vampire, he's weird.
The saloon stood in an abandoned quarry. Huge slabs of rock were scattered here and there. In the center of the pit was a gathering of vampires. They were drinking blood, some from jugs they bought, some from live victims. A band of vampire mariachis played on a makeshift stage. Vampires danced together in crazy, blood-soaked revelries. The farmers looked on, absolutely terrified. Herman's mouth hung wide open.
They come from miles around to drink here. Our existence is a solitary one. Without company, you go mad.
Priest led the farmers into the thick of the gathering. Many hungry eyes fell upon them. Vampires licked their lips. Many of the vampires knew Priest, and most didn't like him. They whistled at him and grumbled as he walked by. A huge, tough vampire named Whiskey, who served up blood at the bar, stepped in his way.
Priest, it's been a while. Come back to save our souls again?
No, I came to do some business.
No shit. This I gotta see.
Whiskey whistled. The band stopped playing.
Brothers and sisters, sorry to interrupt your evening. Most of you know our old friend Priest here. Now, he didn't come here to preach. He said he has a business proposition. Let's hear him out. Padre?
I'm organizing a posse. I need some volunteers.
The vampires looked at each other. Confused, Sing Song, a Chinese vampire, spoke up.
A posse?
To protect the village from bandits.
You want us to protect humans?
They're willing to pay. In blood. A juggernaut until the deed is done.
The vampires stopped laughing. If there was one thing they were always interested in, it was blood. Sing Song stepped towards the farmers.
Let's have a taste, Sam.
He reached for Herman, but Priest slapped his hand away.
No, not human blood.
Toad, an ugly vampire with large cat-like eyes, stepped forward.
I ain't working for no damn jar of pig's blood.
Another vampire named Shackles shook his head.
Might as well be a bowl of pig shit.
Razors had arrived. He turned to Shackles.
Like you never drank that before.
It's better than the hunger. Anyone?
No one moved. Then, a well-dressed vampire who looked like a gunslinger stepped forward. He was wearing 2 6-shooters at his side. He had a mustache and steely, narrow eyes. He smoked a long, thin cigar. They called him Snake Eyes.
What about the bandits? Who gets their blood?
Carlos spoke up.
You can drain every one of them to the last drop.
Snake Eyes took a long drag off his cigar. When he breathed out the smoke, it looked like a serpent.
Okay, priest. I'm in. Name's Snake Eyes.
Another vampire stepped forward. This one was a beautiful young woman. There was something cat-like about her.
I've done worse for a meal. Name Shade.
Snake Eyes tipped his hat to her.
Charmed.
Toad scoffed.
He's taking women. Now I know it's a joke.
Shade heard him. She pointed her hand to Toad, and suddenly, her fingernails shot out like long, thin daggers. They stopped just short of Toad's eyeballs. He gulped.
Sorry, did you say something?
Toad gritted his teeth and shook his head. Shade retracted her fingernails.
Anyone else?
A big, muscular Native American vampire stepped out of the crowd. He was easily the biggest and strongest of all the vampires.
Nightwing.
Priest nodded and shook his hand.
Anyone else? Anyone?
No one responded. Then Razor stumbled forward.
Okay, you talked me into it, Hefe.
Priest looked him over. Razor swayed back and forth and scratched his chin.
Of course I'll need a small supply of tequila to go with the blood.
Priest shook his head and turned to the others.
Let's go.
As they headed out of the saloon, the mariachi band started playing again. Razor shook his head, mumbling to himself, not quite getting it.
Priest! Wait! Hey! Where are you going, Priest?
Razors watched as Priest and the others disappeared into the night. End of episode 1. Stay tuned for the next chapter of Rio Sangre.